Yes, lads, what is going on? And welcome to Season 4, Episode 10 of The Running Irishman. In this episode, we are joined by Keith McClure. If you don't know who Keith is a sport photographer. He mainly focuses on athletics. His passion lies with athletics, like he mentions in this episode. This is as for you've seen the title, you're gonna listen to the episode. This is a different kind of avenue of the sport that I have never taken on the podcast before, and I'm really excited for you all to listen to it. And kind of for me, as much as it is for a lot of you that might be listening to this episode, it was an opportunity to learn about a new area of the sport, because I have no idea about photography. I only know about running in terms of sport photography. So it was great to kind of get the two sides of the running side and all the great knowledge Keith knows about running, and as well as the photography side, as in how he got into it, all the great achievements that he has achieved within photography, and all the amazing shots that he has been able to capture that we go through in this episode. So we obviously start off with a sporting background, how we got into running, and he also played soccer for a while as well. And then we got into how we actually got into running, or not into running, into photography, and kind of that it's only the amazing things that he has achieved, and the fact that it's only a side hustle as he is a teacher as well is astonishing. And it's so impressive in the fact that this isn't even his full profession, and he's still able to achieve the amazing great things he has, like being able to meet and take photos of Mo Farah, and to be able to attend the breaking 2 challenge that Eliud Kipchoge ended up breaking a 2-hour mark in the marathon. And we talk about specifically that picture that Keith was able to capture. So it's a really in-depth episode about photography itself, and also all the different experiences Keith has experienced with his travels to all different races, like going to 2 world championships and being able to take pictures there, which is absolutely amazing. I pretty much just remembered the whole thing because it was such a great episode, and I could literally tell it back to you now, but I'm really, really excited for you all to give this episode a listen. It really was a great one. And before we do, obviously it's been about, if you're watching this like from when it goes live, it's been about 3 weeks or so since I posted an episode of a podcast, or even was active on Instagram. And that was mainly due to the fact that I've had exams in school, so I've been quite busy studying. And then a week after, I was kind of just chillaxing, not having to think about putting up a podcast or getting recorded. So this week we're back at it, and it was no better way to kick it off with having Keith on the podcast and getting to talk to him about running and photography, which was amazing. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let you listen to this episode of the podcast with me and Keith McClure. Hope y'all enjoy. Yes, lads, what is going on?
My name is Amy O'Donoghue.
People call me Dr. Josh.
My name's Lewis O'Loughlin.
My name is Isolde O'Donnell.
I'm Charlie O'Donovan.
I'm Abdul Jill.
I'm Scott Fagan.
I'm Mark Conrad.
My name's Cormac Dalton.
I'm Paul Byrne.
I'm Michael Morgan.
More than a runner.
The Irish Hammer.
My name's Brennan.
I'm Brian Fay.
It's Dash Bar.
I am a triathlete.
Craig Engels.
Cheryl Nolan. Sean Donoghue. John Rankin.
We got 10th at the World Championships in 2019 in Doha.
I'm doing great. Just happy to be on the podcast.
I'm a Man United fan.
Let's get into this episode of the podcast.
Keith McClure, thanks so much, Keith, for taking the time to come onto the podcast. As I've already mentioned, this is definitely something different and something new to the podcast, but I'm really, really looking forward to diving deep into the profession of photography and within the sport of running itself, and sport in general. So again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
No problem.
Deadly. So without further ado, do you want to just kind of kick things off and give us an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Keith McClure. I'm a sort of a teacher during the day, and a photographer at weekends, and whenever I can get the time, really, to take photographs of national events and international events. Yeah, that's me.
Perfect.
Some people know who I am. Some people just recognize me with a camera, or they don't even see my face because the camera is often implanted in front of my face. It's one of those things.
Deadly. So, before we jump into the photography side of things, we're gonna just jump into your sport and background and kind of how the whole, sport and photography specifically came about, if that makes sense. So, do you kind of, you mentioned off air that you've done a wide range of sports. So, do you want to just jump into that a little bit and tell us about your sport and background?
Yeah, it is quite varied. From a young age, been involved in sport. Yeah, my dad's been a golfer all his life. My mum has always gone to gym classes. She's done a couple of marathons. So from a young age, sport's been very much in the house. Very much encouraged to do sport. And then when I was younger, I went to the BB and you played football and different activities there. And then I ended up, playing football, and then obviously got into running through my mum. But the problem was, which happens to lots of people, you're torn between different sports. So I find myself sometimes playing one half of a football match and having to go and do a running race that's obviously terribly conducive.
Yeah.
And then obviously then I got into golf, played for some of the junior teams. And then the running sort of took off. And obviously in my family as well, my brother is a boxer, so he fought in the Commonwealth Games. So sport and having a healthy lifestyle is very much encouraged in the house. And then when I was 11, I joined North Down Athletics Club, which is in the north, in County Down. Represented North Down until I was about 16, something like that. Then the golf took on a bit more. Then went to university, started playing football again. And then I got into running again. And one of my friends at university was a member of Sale Harriers. He's called Andy Walling, who then he did a history degree, but then he got involved in physiotherapy. He was a British physiotherapist for many years there. And then recently he's been the physiotherapist at Manchester United. So that's sort of how I've got into running and into sport. But it's always something that's been in the family. Everyone's always been encouraged to take part in sport. But I've always been first and foremost, an athletics enthusiast. When I was, 11, 12, I was the person at the end of the race trying to get the athlete's number, trying to get the autographs. And I've got so many athletics weeklies. I've got a huge stack of athletics weeklies. I'm a member of Athletics Weekly, so I'd often get the magazine. So first and foremost, sport is in the blood, but I've also been, an enthusiast. I've done, interviews with people for Annandale Striders, different athletes. So all those sorts of things have all sort of tied in to my athletics background. And then eventually it sort of weaved its way into photography. When I returned to athletics again, I had awful issues with stitch problems. I couldn't get rid of my stitch. And gosh, I don't want to bore the listeners and yourself about how many ways I tried to.
No, you're gone, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't really resolve it. Went down to Limerick and I saw a physiotherapist and whatever down there. And so it was one of those things that I could train, but the stitch would often come on for no real reason. So the passion was still there, but obviously I couldn't really race so much. It was having an impact on my racing ability. So, and I was only pretty much a club runner, a 34-minute 10K, 157, 800 meters, sub 10 minutes, 2 mile. So then, with always wanting to go and still support the races, support the colleagues, I ended up bringing a camera around, with me, and I took photographs, wanted to document it, and then just lots of things. One thing led to another. How many goalkeepers have you read about that they were outfield players, and all of a sudden an opportunity arose for them that someone else was unavailable, and they had to jump into nets that day, and the rest is history. And the same to a certain extent for myself. One door closes, another door opens, and you got to maximize and you got to make the most of how things unfold for you, really. So that's how I've got to become a bit of photographer.
Perfect,
really.
Definitely. That was honestly a great kind of in-depth piece of information, obviously, about your sport and background. We'll kind of go back a little bit to the running itself. Obviously, you said you were a big enthusiast, and then obviously the stitch came along. But before that, was there maybe, as you mentioned, 34-minute 10K? You said you're a bit of a club runner, but before that was full steam ahead in terms of trying to go as far as you could in the sport, or was it always kind of just something to be doing, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. when I went to university, I really picked it up again. I played football. I played amateur league football as well, but I was in a good group at university, and then I joined Willifield Harriers, and I got the time down. But it was just a case of just trying to see what I can do here, really, and I was never going to get below 150 or anything like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed the sport. I thoroughly enjoyed the training. And that was really it, really. I was never striving for massive things. I realized my limitations. You look around you and you see what people are able to do around you at a certain age, and you realize, my goodness, it's a big sport with a big continuum. Some people, but you're always trying to go to the next rung on the ladder, so to speak. And that was really it. And then, say, one door closed, and another door opened, and the opportunities that presented to me have been fantastic. Because I realized I would never get to major championships or whatever. But then, with the next door opening and that avenue opening for me, I was able to then go to these events and witness these events at close quarters.
Definitely. And obviously, the times that you mentioned with 34-minute 10K is sub 10 for 2 mile, and especially 157 for 800. For being, quote unquote, a casual runner as such, there are no times to kind of, be ashamed of, I suppose.
No, it's one of those things that I obviously had a natural element of ability, when I was 12 or 13, able to do a 42, 43, 10K. It came quite naturally to me. And yes, you have to work to get it. I realized I hadn't got much speed really, so the 157 probably could have been a bit faster. The 34 probably could have been a bit faster as well. But sure, these are the things that happen, and you always reflect back and think, gosh, what if, or what, the word if is a small word with a big meaning. If I had have done this or had have done that, but I don't really look back, and I've enjoyed, and I still train, I still look after myself, and I don't look back and think, what if this had happened, or what if that had happened, because I still really enjoy my athletics. I'm totally enthusiast, I'd say, and that's at the core of my involvement in sport, really. I thoroughly enjoy it. My goodness, the amount of athletics weeklies I have, or the magazines I have here, and all the bits and pieces that I have, are sort of testament to that.
Definitely. And in terms of running, like physical running nowadays, what's that kind of looking like for you?
Yeah, well, I'm a teacher, so I keep myself in good shape. If you're a teacher, you're a role model. So, and I'm a PE teacher, so it's very important to stay in shape. And I exercise. I would probably exercise 5 or 6 days a week, between running and going to the gym. I did an hour on the treadmill. I did an hour on the treadmill yesterday. I went to the gym tonight, did some weights. I like to do a lot of body weight stuff, pull-ups and dips and press-ups and things like that. So I'm still in half decent nick, have to say, so I'm happy enough with how things are.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of, obviously that was a great bit of information again about your sporting background and how it led into, the photography side of things. So once you kind of decided maybe to call the run of the day for a little bit and pick up the camera and start taking pictures, how old were you when that started?
Well, that probably in my it probably is about, let me see, I've always had a camera for a period. I've always had a camera which is like a small sort of shoot and go job, and so I've used that, but it's been a case of maybe the last, say, 8 or 9 years that I've sort of got into it a bit more in terms of just getting like a proper, like an SLR or something like that, so because I have taken, when you look back at some old photographs, you realize you hadn't got the quality wasn't there. The camera, the technology in the camera wasn't so good, because there'll be times I've been asking people here what, because I'm pretty much self-taught, what shutter speed should I have, or what mode should I have, and looking back now, the camera was not of the right quality, really, so it's a case of there's almost like two strands to it, in that I've taken photographs for a period of time, but I didn't document the photographs then. It's only been the last maybe sort of 8 or 9 years, maybe 10 years, that I've sort of started to present the photographs, because I've got better technology, better equipment, and then I've been able to showcase them a bit more, really,
Yeah, definitely. And then kind of, what were your aims, when you were going out? Was it just, did you go out having just say a race one day? Would you usually have a specific aim, a specific photograph, a specific person that you want to take a picture of, or would it kind of just be kind of go out and see what you can do?
I think with photography, it's about knowing your subject. So obviously at the very start, I got a camera, I did my research, read up on the internet, looked at lots of books, picked people's brains as well, and then I would have gone to the local circuit. Obviously, fundamentally, first of all, you want to try and get the winner. You want to try and get the main players. But then after a while, once I acquired more knowledge and experience, then I'd be looking for different wee things in the race. Maybe it's facial expressions, or maybe it was shoes or equipment or whatever it was, just to give you a wee angle. And it's all about sort of knowing your subject and doing your research. So as an enthusiast in the sport, I would know who the main players were. I would know the backstory on lots of people. So whereas there's sometimes when people go to, to take photographs at certain events, that people would have been asking me, Keith, who am I looking for here? Or who's that person? Or who is such and such? And they were just going along. They were told to get a photograph of X, Y, and Z. They hadn't a clue who X, Y, and Z were. They were able to say, well, that's the person there. Like, they were just sent there. So the advantage I've had is that I know who to look for. So as time's gone on, then and certainly at the very start, I suppose as well, I've had I think an ability to see a shot. I know what I'm looking for. I've got I know what I want. And I say whether it is obviously you want the winner, you want the shots like that, but also it's the wee individual shots from whether it is a pair of shoes someone has, or whether it's a hat, or it's just something to give them that uniqueness. Obviously, your shot has to tell a story. You have to tell a story. And photography, sports photography to myself, is all about the emotion. There has to be an emotion. There has to be, when someone looks at the photograph, it's reflective, and it stimulates thoughts in their mind about what's going on there. It's not just something very, very bland. So as time's gone on, I've got more experience, and then that's how that's sort of come along.
Definitely. And was it always kind of sports specific that you were into, or was there a time where you'd kind of just want that you'd be out somewhere, you'd have the camera on you, and you'd kind of be taking pictures of anything?
So during the lockdown, it was a wee bit like that, because there was no sporting events. So I was doing, I was down at the local park, and I was taking, photographs of the wildlife and things like that. And again, it's an opportunity to use different modes in the camera, because you gotta get to know your camera. Anybody can pick up a camera, but it's all about getting the most out of the camera. The cameras are so sophisticated, of course, but it's about using different techniques and different styles, and making a combination of those to try and get a certain look that you want. A look that hasn't just happened by fluke or random. It's something you've purposely, set out to achieve. But certainly, it's pretty much been athletics. With athletics being my passion, it's something that I've always wanted to remain in the sport, whether I'm just going to watch or to support other colleagues. I've had it, it's in the DNA, so to speak, that I've wanted to go and just follow the sport. I say I'm a big follower of the sport, and have been for many, many years.
And for specifically, again, a lot of these questions will be quite selfish, I suppose, because it's nothing that I'm ever had not had an interest in, I suppose, but kind of ever heard about, or it's not something that I look deep into the sport of athletics. So it's a lot of me just trying to figure out kind of how things happen and how people get into it, I suppose. But kind of what I was gonna say was, when so when you're out and you have your camera, as you said, you're looking for emotion, and you look for gear, and you look for the top people, but is there what other things, I suppose, is it that you look for? People maybe further back in the race. Is there ever things that you're kind of thinking in the back of your head? Okay, maybe if it's not the best player, or maybe if it's not the best piece of equipment, what else is it that you're looking for that will maybe capture a shot, but won't be maybe what everyone else is looking for?
Yeah. Certainly. It's quite interesting in that you mentioned with people that are further back in the race, because I came across a few photographs recently there of a certain Nick Griggs, who's doing remarkably well. And I've got photographs of Nick from about, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, when he was competing in the Ulster Schools. And he might have finished, he was certainly out of the medals, but that particular day I just kept snapping right down the field, because sometimes you can there comes a point maybe that you stop snapping. You can't take a photograph of every single finisher. In a race, there's times. Depends on how the race goes and depends on how big the field is. But certainly, I've got photographs of Nick that he was quite far down the field. But again, you can look at athletes and maybe it's a style. You like the style, or just things like that. Or maybe it could be a very close, even though it could be people vying for last place or penultimate finishing place. It could be that competitive streak, and maybe there's two athletes there. The rest of the race has been finished a long time ago, but they're still vying for their competitive nature, they're trying to beat the other person no matter how far back. And again, that brings out a great shot, because regardless of finishing first and second or 100th and 101st, people are still at their level, they're still trying their best, they still feel pain. And so there's times photographs can come about quite unexpected as well. You're not really expecting it, but all of a sudden, out of somewhere, you see someone having a battle with someone else, or someone else has fallen, or whatever it is. So it is for myself, and I mentioned before, it is the emotion. And people that are finishing up at the front have still got the same emotions as people who are further back. They're running their own individual race, and they're coming from different perspectives about ability or training, or they've come back from an injury, whatever it is. So that's something that the camera is still live. So I've taken at a finishing line, they've got the first ones, but the camera's still live to capture something else that attracts my attention. And it could be, just somebody who maybe has started to walk, but the crowd are cheering and they've got them going again. And all of a sudden, that's a great emotive photograph. And it could be, and maybe try and get the background of the crowd and they're cheering the person on. So the London Marathon's great for that, because I'd often stand near outside Buckingham Palace, and there's not too far to go. There's maybe under 200 meters to go. And there's times at that point of the marathon they've gone over 26 miles and the body's starting to give up, and there's people that start to walk, but the crowd are really, really willing them to start again, and they're really, really passionate. So that's a great photograph that you can see the crowd just so passionate with totally random people. Yep. These people, in cases, don't know who the athletes are, but they want the best for them and they want them to finish. And in so many cases, the crowd, just make that person start up again and give them the impetus and give them the strength to carry on.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of when you're taking a photo, kind of what's going through your head? Is it more for what the people want to see, maybe for the Instagram, wherever other places you might share your photos with, or is it kind of maybe even a deeper meaning within a shot that you see? Is it all completely selfish, quote unquote, I suppose, that like you want this shot for you specifically? Kind of what's going through your head when you're taking a shot?
Yeah, it's a good question. I try to pride myself on taking photographs that puts athletes, whatever, or performers in a good light. There's times I see photographs and people don't look the best. They may not like the pictures. So, and of course, not everyone can look really good when they're running, and obviously people pull particular faces. But I try and put photographs on that put people, I say, in a good light. It's not for me. I like to try and take the photograph to tell the story. And whether it is a celebration or whether it's just somebody trying their best, whatever, or it could be the style. That's the main thing. And if people like the pictures, and if they contact me and they like a copy, whatever it is, then that's so be it. That's great. Because that's me doing my job. That's me having the passion, and the passion is then, or the enthusiasm is then unfolding onto someone else because they've appreciated the photographs that have been taken. It's great to have a bit of acknowledgement when someone says, I like your photograph, or it's on someone's wall. I know people have got some of my photographs that's on their wall because you say it portrays them in a nice light. It's they like the shape of their style or whatever it is. So I try and take the photographs and display ones that look or aesthetically pleasing for people. Or it captures a moment, because taking photographs is capturing a moment. You're capturing a moment that won't happen again. And that's the great thing that I like about sports photography. I'm going to the races. I'm really enjoying the races or the event, whatever it is. And then I get to relive it again when I get home through the photographs. Because there's times you haven't got time to reflect on the photograph there and then, because if you're too busy reflecting on the photograph, well, then you've missed the shot. If you see the shot without your head at the camera, well, then you've missed it, because the time that it takes you to move the camera into place and take the shot, well, then you're only going to get the back end of the image, or you haven't really got the meat of it. So for myself, it's really, really, I find it very sort of intrinsically motivating when you put the memory card in and you see what you have, and hopefully you've got. And there's times you look at before you actually reflect on it, and you think, gosh, I think hopefully I've got that shot, and it is gratifying to realize that, gosh, I did get that shot, I have got that one, and hopefully if someone likes it, so be it. It's great, and it's just it is motivating if someone likes what you're trying to do, and you're trying to showcase a moment in time that will always be there. It hasn't happened again, and that's why celebrations, whatever, are good, or individual battle, or a 2 or 3 person battle are really, really good. So that's, again, at the heart of it is the emotion.
Yeah, definitely. So in a sense, it's you want to get the shot, obviously, so you can look back and relive the moment, I suppose. But it is in the same, like, the athlete, I suppose, is always, or the moment is always in the back of your head, where you want to make the moment look and portray it as good as possible, and make the athlete, obviously not to make it look like a fake situation, or make it look better than it is, but kind of just to capture what is in front of you as best as you possibly can, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the key essence in terms of, it has to be natural. It can't be contrived, and it's nice having, photographs taken sometimes if it's just something that someone's made after the race. They're maybe reflecting or whatever. It's not something that's been set up. It's just totally natural, and they haven't been aware even of the camera, and they're having maybe a conversation with someone, or they're going through a race. They're talking to their coach or something. So those photographs are nice to have too for people, because they are totally natural.
Definitely. And kind of a side thing is, have you ever been out taking loads of photos, capturing loads of photos that you feel are really, really good, taking the SD card out, putting it into the computer, and there's nothing?
No, that's never happened, because that's you got to do your homework. If you feel to prepare, you're preparing to fail. It's one of those sort of mottos, and that you got to, and you just keep on checking and making sure, because I've heard horror stories like that have happened to people, whether it's true or not, for wedding photographers, and they've gone and tried to take whatever, and they've looked at their camera, and there's no memory card. But thankfully it hasn't happened to myself. That must be an absolute nightmare, because you only get sometimes one chance to get these shots, and I would imagine then if that happens to you, well, you could be in a lot of bother. If someone's if you've got a commission to take photographs of a certain event or a certain person, and you haven't done that, which, people are under pressure, of course, and that could easily happen. But certainly, thank goodness, so far, no, it hasn't happened to myself. No,
that's cool, because there's been
there's
been many times where I've been, recording a podcast, thinking, the guest voice being picked up, my voice being picked up, end the call, go to look back on the episode, and there's nothing, there's no sound, or there's no video, and you have to pick between texting the guest back and say, here, will we, any chance of another shot, or just, dealing with it and telling the guests that, sorry, none of it was captured, it was a complete waste of time. So no, if it has happened to anyone, or even if it does, fingers crossed it doesn't, but if it does happen to yourself in the future, I'll definitely be able to relate to what you're feeling I feel in pretty much the same way. So that must be, especially if you're out, you've been paid to take pictures at a wedding, or any kind of specific event, and that specifically happens to you. So no, but obviously fingers crossed that you get away with that for as long as you're taking pictures.
Thank you.
So obviously as well, kind of referring to the podcast a little bit, I suppose it's, within the sport there's loads of different areas. Obviously there's the media side, like the podcast, and obviously yourself with the photography game as such. So is it not even a hard thing to get into specifically, because technically all you need is a camera, but to get your work out there and to get it, different to other people's that are, nowadays with Instagram and everything, everyone's posting their gear, is it hard to kind of get your name out there and kind of get recognised in sports photography?
Yeah, and it depends on the sort of level you're working at or operating at. Say I'm a teacher first and foremost, and the photography's a wee sort of bolt on for me, and I'm able to go to these races and championships, obviously through the help of Athletics Northern Ireland, Athletics Ireland. They help with my accreditations, things like that. So, in terms of Ireland's a relatively small place, and there's many sports photographers, and there's a number of very good photography agencies. I don't know how difficult it is in terms of putting a portfolio together and then wanting to be employed by one of these companies, because I haven't had to pursue that avenue. But certainly for myself, personally speaking, I find when I've developed a bit of a portfolio, I've tried to get my name about and shared lots of photographs, and some people would recognize who I am, because I have tried to send my photographs, with a broad brush, so to speak. I have been to lots of events, within Ireland and Northern Ireland, and then obviously then across the mainland and then further afield. So I don't know really how difficult it is if you want to make it a career. I'm luckily I have a career, and as I say, the photography's something else that that I'm passionate about. And saying that, it's like anything, I suppose. If you're really, really motivated, if you're really, really interested in doing something and you'll pursue it, you'll get there. And if someone wants to take up photography, they put a portfolio together, and if they were to contact an agency or cast their net out, well, then it could be, an avenue that they want to get into. But I would imagine it's competitive enough. There are many photographers throughout the world, and it's a bit of a dog eat dog, I'd imagine, scenario, trying to get certain shots.
Definitely. Kind of on that note specifically, at events where just say, like, as you mentioned, you've been 2 world championships, which we'll be getting into now in a moment. Is it a dogfight when you get there, to get a position, to get a shot? What's kind of the atmosphere between all the photographers on the day?
Yeah, it is fantastic, the atmosphere, and certainly when you have only some photographers, like I'm be friendly with a photographer called Mark Shearman, Mark Shearman MBE, and the MBE, he was for services to sports photography or to photography. He's been to, I think, every Olympic Games since like 1964. Every Commonwealth Games, every European Championships, pretty much every World Championship. So he is a real guru of the sport, and so you're in a photography room, a base there with the media room with someone like him, and obviously there are people of his, well, not as many of his ilk because he's been to so many, but there's so many of these photographers who are so revered, and you're sitting there and you're sitting across the way from them. You've got your laptop out, and you're working away, and then closer to the time of the meet starting, everyone, you can see people checking their equipment, checking their gear, of course, making sure the memory sticks are in their camera, and rechecking again, and then lots of sort of equipment, people are all almost heading out to battle. It's one of those, almost like a scenario, all heading out to battle, heading out through the door, and then going to their different specific places to get the photographs. And yeah, there's a lot of adrenaline, because you want to go there. Obviously, I'm under different pressure to these people, because for these people, it's their livelihood. They need to get the photograph of Bolt, or they need to get the photograph of Mo. I'm trying to get ones of the Irish athletes, whatever it is. So there's different pressures, but even so, it's just the experience of sitting in that room, going out and getting your gear checked, whatever, and out you go, and then obviously you're going out there, and you've maybe, when you've arrived at the venue to get your camera all sorted out, the crowd hasn't really arrived, so you're heading out. There's maybe 50 or 60,000 in the stadium. The stadium are going crazy. So that's really, 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 really good. And I say I've been to a few championships, I've been to a few Europeans. So it's a great atmosphere, great experience, great privilege. To be able to go out and you're documenting history. And that's what I mentioned earlier on, that you've taken these photographs, and all of a sudden in that night you're going back and you're reliving what you're reliving again, in terms of what shots you got and what athletes, and that's brilliant. There's been many a time, even aside from big championships, I've driven, with me living in County Down, I'm driving back from Abbottstown or from Santry or whatever, and it takes you a couple of hours driving back. But I can't wait to get back home again to really dissect the photographs, see what I've got, see what looks good, So that's a lovely incentive to always have in front of me to do when I get back again.
Definitely, yeah, no. So kind of everyone in on the day of a race, just say, where it's the media, which I'm not much experience with media on the day, but the experience I have had, I even know that's a little bit of a competition, you could say, of the athletes competing, and as well, like you said, the photographers trying to get the best shot, or the different shots, or the specific shots they need. But like you said, there's photographers there that are doing it as a profession, and they have to get these shots. It could even be their career on the line for different people. But for you, obviously, as you mentioned, your teaching career and this photography, for you is kind of more of a side thing. But within Ireland, especially, like, you've over 2,600 followers on Instagram. Some of the shots that we'll definitely get into later on in the episode that you have captured, and like you mentioned, a portfolio that you could put together, especially for athletics photography. Is it something that you have ever or will ever consider as maybe even a full-time or a money-making career?
No, not certainly at the moment anyway. I'm first and foremost a teacher. I'm very passionate about my teaching, so it always comes first. So I wouldn't need to sort of look at that avenue, but certainly I'm just enjoying what I'm doing. I just totally love athletics. I'm very much versed in athletics. I know the history of athletics, particularly in Ireland. And yeah, so it's just something I wouldn't need to pursue at the moment. I'm just really, really enjoying getting the opportunity to go to different meets, different events, and be at the sideline, be at the cutting edge, pretty much, of athletics. But you mentioned again about the dogfight. It is pretty much a dogfight in some cases, with trying to get positions for races. And there's some photographers will maybe sit and pitch out for quite a few hours before the race actually starts, just so they have that position, so no one else can sort of come along and elbow them or put them out of the way. So yeah, there's a lot of preparation, a lot of thinking time going on. People, it's not a case of just come into a venue and then you just sort of walk on down and you get your shot. You can imagine the amount of interest for the Olympic 100-meter final, that people want that shot, that head-on shot. So people will go down and they'll say they will effectively camp out for quite a few hours beforehand, just so they're in A1 position, they've got the prime spot, and that's them ready to go. But at the moment I'm happy enough. I like to say I love my teaching. It's the first and foremost to me. I'm very, very passionate about that. But the athletics and the photography is just a nice wee side bit for myself that I'm just really, really enjoying.
So on the topic of the side hustle, I suppose, that the photography, you say, is for you, I just wanted you to tell me how you've got the opportunity to go to 2 World Championships, 1 World Cross Country, 1 European Indoor, 1 Commonwealth Games, 3 European Championships, and a lot more, with this being just a side hustle. Is that being primarily funded by you, or are you being, invited or through an organisation sent to these events?
Yeah. So initially, I picked up the camera and I was on the local circuit and did races within, Northern Ireland, and then I branched on down. I thought we'd go down south and, do the Irish Championships and things like that. And then after a while, I was able to supply photographs to some newspapers, and it was great even seeing my name on the paper, for the byline, for the credit. And then the next stage for me, another rung up the ladder, was going over to the Edinburgh Cross Country. I go to the Edinburgh Cross Country every year, and that was really, really good, because there was a lot of great athletes there, British athletes, American athletes. There's often the European team, and then from there I thought, here, let's see what else I can do. And all the while, I was trying to get my name promoted, and so my name was familiar. And then I would apply for accreditation for the IAAF, for the European or the European Federation, and so I was World Athletics now, whatever. And then I was very much appreciated to be supported by Athletics Northern Ireland. I've done some work for Athletics Northern Ireland photography, and then I would get my accreditation. And Athletics Ireland would be very supportive as well, to get me, the accreditation, and which enabled me then to go over there and take photographs of the Irish athletes, and that's enabled me then to go to the various meets. I was over at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, and I was able to take photographs of all the Northern Ireland athletes, and then I've been to a few half marathons, world half marathons, European championships, and no, that's all funded by myself. So I'm just very, very happy that I get the accreditation, and then I'll be funded by myself, and it just so happens then I'm able to go because of the school holidays and things like that. So it opens up that avenue for me. I'm very lucky as well that my wife is an athletics sort of enthusiast, developing absolutely because with me, yeah. She's a linguist. She speaks French. She speaks German. So I've been very lucky in that I always have an interpreter with me, and somebody who's just very pleased to be able to go to Berlin or to Munich or to Frankfurt. So she's very happy to come along and to see bits of the city too. So that's how that sort of unfolds.
Exactly. So basically, yeah, as you mentioned, it's funded by you, but then you get the accreditation then to actually get into each event and kind of get your spot down, whether it's on the track or on the course, to get the best photo that you possibly can. So as I mentioned, I listed a few of the events that you've been to throughout the years, and the first one on this list, obviously you put on the list, and that is probably out of the list, is probably what I'm thinking would be like the biggest events that you could go to specifically for athletics, would be 2 World Championships. So, when were they? Which World Championships were they?
I went to Moscow, 2013 World Championships, and then went to London in 2017. But they're fantastic in their own right. Because of the big crowds and the atmosphere and all the rest of it. But even on a smaller scale, I've been to Kenya a number of times as well. And, that's a great thrill as well, because they're totally at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of atmosphere and crowd and prestige. However, being in Kenya, I've witnessed, Eliud Kipchoge in the track, training with Bruman Kipruto. I've seen Vivian Chariot on the same day in the track. So that's been a great privilege as well. Helen O'Beary on the track as well. So that's been a great privilege to see them train in the track. But yet when you go to London, and it was just great to witness Mo in the 10,000 meters, retaining his title. The crowd was the place was just mad, because the Olympics had been hosted there, only a number of years before. And you obviously, as I mentioned earlier on about getting into the cauldron of so many thousand people, it was a great championships. And I said it was great to see Mo retain his title. I've met Mo on a number of occasions, and I met him obviously in Kenya a number of years ago too. So it's just great to follow his career.
Definitely. At them World Championships, whether in London or out of the two anyway, is there any photos specifically that you can remember that you feel captured the event the best?
I suppose I have got a soft spot, for Mo, having met him before. And when I met him in Kenya a number of years ago, he actually took a few photographs of me and a few athletes with my camera. So it's just really nice to track his career, to follow his career. And suppose, there's a photograph of him coming through the line when he retained his title. He had a massive battle, a titanic battle yet again with Joshua Cheptegei and Paul Tanui. And just to see the emotion on his face coming through the line, because obviously he's very, very expressive. And when he was totally eyeballs out down the home straight, to me that was a good. I like the photograph I'd taken for that.
Definitely, yeah, no.
Obviously, Bolt. I've got a good photograph of Bolt. That there was a massive build up between him and Justin Gatlin, and on this occasion, Gatlin, had defeated Usain Bolt, and it was, I think, Usain had declared that this was going to be his last race or his last big championships beforehand, and then afterwards, it was a tight enough finish. Usain finished third, and then when they weren't too sure at the end of the race, who actually had won, because it was very, very close. And actually, Usain hadn't actually seen. I don't think he had seen Justin Gatlin, because there was quite a few lanes separating them. And then at the end of the race, when it unfolded that Gatlin had won the race, that he got down on his knees and bowed down to Usain. which was a nice fitting touch, and I got a photograph of that he was bowing down to him. He was acknowledging his presence and his stature, which is pretty humble, of him doing
Definitely.
that.
And with your interactions with Mo Farah specifically, what kind of person was he like?
Oh yeah, Mo is what you see on TV. Just very grounded, very down to earth, very humble. And he's a very fun guy. And actually, I met him last year again at the Antrim Half Marathon. He wasn't running. He had raced the Antrim Half Marathon the previous year, and then he was injured last year. But as a favour to his former, his friend and colleague James McElroy, one of the organisers, he came back for the Antrim race just to add a bit of panache to it and to help out. And he was doing like a coaching session or whatever, and then he was just there to start the kids race. He did a warm up with the kids. He was most great for the PR, for signing. He wouldn't refuse anyone an autograph. He's very, very media savvy, really nice, just a very genuine person. And so I met Mo again. And then one of the occasions that when the kiddies race was on, I was in the back of the truck just sitting beside Mo, snapping away. And he's Mo's what you say. He's just very fun, just the way you see him, and with the celebrity programs on TV. That's Mo for you. All big smiles, big heart.
Definitely. And I have this picture that you were mentioning with Mo and his expression crossing the line in the World Championships in 2017, and that is definitely. Yeah. From the question I asked, I led to that picture that captured the event in the moment, the best Utah, and with being defending his soil, being in London as well, and the battle of a race they had to get there. I 100% agree. It's definitely is a great photo. So we'll kind of then move on to kind of another event. We'll kind of flick through the list of the events that you put down here and kind of see what we get out of them. So you also have a World Cross Country Championship, which is something that since I've gotten into running a few years ago, it's not something that I've had much experience in watching or even talking about. So the World Cross Country Championship specifically, what are they like as an event?
Well, there's a huge of course the World Cross Country goes back. I think it's the first one was about 1973 or something, so many years ago. And Ireland certainly as well have got a great tradition in World Cross Country, with John Tracy winning the title on 2 occasions. But the World Cross Country is an event that can bring together so many athletes from so many different disciplines, whether it's the 1500 meter runners moving up, or the marathon runners, sort of moving down that catch, almost like a boxer's catch weight. So there's so many different stratifications of athletes taking part. And it's notorious for the first mile as, crazy speeds, crazily fast. And it's been something that the Kenyans and Ethiopians have dominated pretty much from whatever it is, maybe 1984, 85 onwards. We had a monopoly of the great John Ngugi winning at least 4, if not 5 times. And then we had, another Kenyan athlete, Paul Turgat, and he had a fantastic reign. I watched him race in Belfast. And then thereafter we had Kenenisa Bekele, who had the unique distinction of winning the World Cross Country, the short and long course on a number of occasions. And obviously another person to do that was our great Sonia O'Sullivan, who in I think it was 1998 in Marrakesh, she won the short course and the long course, which is a huge feat because it's 2 races in 2 days. The short course, I think from memory, was at 4K. And then obviously the long course was 12K. So it's one race one day, the next. But the World Cross Country is just, it's a crazy event. I think it's 9 athletes, 6 to score. People at the very back of the field are not, I'm sure they're not running too much slower than a 31 10K, but they're probably, 4 or 5, 4 minutes down. That sort of speed. And it was great to go to. I went to Bydgoszcz in Poland to watch the World Cross Country, and it was great for Kenyan athletes because they had a bit of a drought. They hadn't won the World Cross Country for I think it was 10 or 11 years. So the great Paul Turgott was the last one. There's great expectation, of course, with any Kenyan team to take part in any race, let alone the World Cross Country. Almost like the steeplechase for the Kenyans. They sometimes feel it's a divine right that they must win it, and they've got a great tradition in it. So for John and the guy called Joseph Abuya had won the cross country in Poland, and it was a great day for the Kenyans, because it closed that chapter of that book, because they were gone too long, not having won the individual. They go for the individual title, and it was too many years had passed. I've got a great affinity for Kenyan running, having been to Kenya a number of times. So I like to follow the Kenyan athletes and to see and to celebrate their successes.
And is that where kind of you feel your knowledge of the sport, knowing that the Kenyan athletes, haven't had success in a few years, and that they feel they have the right to be, dominating the sport as they have been doing? Do you feel like your knowledge of the sport allowed you then to, focus on specific Kenyan athletes, focus on, the Kenyan athletes just specifically, to be able to get the best shots for if the outcome came where they end up getting an individual title, or if they end up having a bad day? So you think that your knowledge of the sport allowed you to have the best outcome that you possibly could on the day?
Yeah, well, certainly the Kenyans are often at the front, so you're not having to sort of pick them out in the pack or halfway down the field. They're always there, thereabouts. And saying that, John Travers had a very good run that day. I think he was a sole Irish representative in the junior race, and he had a really good run. But yeah, the Kenyans, they run with a lot of passion. In some cases, they run. It can be quite tactical in terms of how they want to race together. But there's a lot of pride. I went and watched the 2008 or something. I think it was 2008. The World Cross Country was hosted at Edinburgh, and it was a great spectacle as well, because it was a fantastic Kenyan team, but it was up against obviously an incredible Ethiopian team too, with Kenenisa Bekele, and certainly the race is worth watching if you haven't seen it, because Kenenisa Bekele's shoe comes off in one of the laps, and he has to stop, put the shoe back on again, and he's given away lots and lots of distance, but he manages to reign supremely again. And on that occasion, the Kenyan team was very good. They had Augustine Chogi and lots of other good guys, Moses Masai, but yeah, it's nice having. I know I still keep in touch with some of the Kenyan athletes. The captain that particular day was a guy called Mark Kiptoo, and I'd be often on the phone with Mark, just seeing how he's getting on, his preparations for. He's still running away. He's pursuing like a master's career. So it's just nice seeing how they get on, and I know that in many cases how far some of those athletes have travelled in terms of putting themselves in a position to represent their country. It's as you can imagine, the competition is incredibly tight. It's incredibly tough to even get a Kenyan vest, and there is a lot of obviously pressure on those guys to deliver every time they don the Kenyan vest.
Definitely. So when you're out there and there's a Kenyan athlete racing, it's definitely in the back of your mind an athlete to be keeping your eye on or focusing on that day. But compared cross country to track, obviously if you're out, taking pictures on a cold, wet, slippery cross country day, for you, standing there in the rain, lying down in the mud, it's not the best. But some of the pictures you can get, just like back in 2020, you made the top 30 shortlist for the World Athletics photographer, or for photography, the picture itself. That links into the fact that you can get some, and I'll put a picture of it on the screen for anyone that wants to see it, or Keith's Instagram will be in the description if you want to see it as well, where you can get some pretty good pictures if the course is in terrible condition on a cross country day. Or would you rather be on the track getting your pictures?
No, certainly on that particular day, it was a mess, absolute bog. It rained all day long, and obviously then that gives variety, and it gives you opportunities to to look for certain particular shots, and with a couple, that was the Celtic International, and it was hosted at Stirling, and in one of the earlier races, I realised that this corner here is treacherous. This corner is so bad, someone's going to fall, and in the picture, if you actually look at it, what had happened was that there was a race previously, and the next race had, obviously the set time, the race went on schedule, but I think it's a female runner, whatever, and she hadn't finished, so she's trying to negotiate her way around the corner. Unbeknownst to her, that the other race, well, obviously she realised the other race has gone off and they were catching, so she was going around the corner, and then all these guys are all trying to fly around the corner at crazy speeds, and but I had already noticed that this corner is treacherous, so let's stay here for a while and see what I can pick up. And again, it was a case of just waiting, and all of a sudden then it happened, and I managed to get that photograph of people trying to negotiate the corner, crazy slippy, really muddy. The conditions weren't terribly good at all, as you can see, and that had happened. And again, I just snapped away, and then the race goes on, and you move somewhere else, and you try and pick up some other shots. I've got some other shots of runners trying to negotiate a big area that was totally waterlogged, which gives creativity to the photograph, and again that gives emotion because people are running through, maybe their eyes are closed, and you say they're trying to negotiate the water. So, and again afterwards I looked at the photographs and thought, oh gosh, that's great, that looks really, really good, and then it came up with for the competition, I thought, let's have a look at my photographs that I had. There wasn't too many opportunities because COVID kicked in, and I thought, yeah, that one there looks pretty good. There's a lot of emotion in the photograph. I've managed to capture someone on the ground, someone trying to leapfrog them. There's a lot on in it, and that's what I said earlier on. If I had have stood there and then saw that and then taken a photograph, I would have missed it. So pretty much, if you see it, you've missed it. If you see it, you've missed it, and that's what happened for that. And I entered it, and I was very pleased to get a sort of nomination, because it was something I'd planned for. It wasn't something I'd reacted to. I'd realised this is a good place to be, and I waited my time, because there was a few races prior to that and nothing happened, no one was falling, and then I was thought, well, we'll give it another go here and let's see what happens. And just by chance, you make your own luck, don't you? You need a bit, of course, you need a bit of luck, and it's like at a football match or whatever, you could be at the wrong end and the goal's all been scored, whereas I pitched my stall out there and I waited my time, and I got a good shot, and I was pleased with it.
It is such a good shot. Now, when I was looking at it, and I'm looking at it here now, when I saw that woman trying to navigate the corners, kind of, obviously everyone else in the race are all male, and I was thinking, God, what is she doing in the race? But that is really interesting, the fact that she was still running from the race prior, and she probably ended up causing the whole thing pretty much to happen. People trying to navigate the muddy corner and navigate around her. And as you said, they're running at significantly faster speeds as she is. So that is really interesting.
So that's a story. That's the backstory. There's often stories behind, and that's why it's nice just that if I have got the knowledge, I know the subject, I know the athletes I'm looking for, then I can hopefully get a wee niche that I think, I'm going to try and target this person because I know what's been happening. I know they're just back from an injury, or I know why they're doing the race, or they're going to go for a certain time. So hence, in a photograph, you can see why there's so much reaction or so much emotion, because it's been something that's been planned for them, and I know hopefully the backstory to what's going on, so it's always a help.
Going out compared track to cross country, where do you think you'll pick up the best photos?
Certainly, it depends. It depends on the cross country course. If it's a really, really mucky course, whatever, that lends itself to a bit of creativity, and you see what's going on. People plowing through mud as opposed to being on a course that is just bone dry and it's just almost like a track race. Steeplechase is very, very good for getting photographs too, with coming off the water jump or going into the water jump, whatever it is. And steeplechase is obviously very good for negotiating the hurdles. Pole vault, of course, is like, there's so many different disciplines within athletics that are conducive to creating good images. It's whether it's the throwing events, the propelling of the javelin or the shot or the discus, and again, there's a lot of strength and a lot of motion in people's faces, or whether it's just, whether it is, a sprint race coming around the bend, or exploding out of the blocks or a fantastic dip. So each race has got their own way unique, element which you draw on to try and create the image and to try and create the emotion. And again, it's knowing your subject, it's knowing the discipline, and it's knowing, what story you want to tell. What do you want to convey here, and what do you want to project from your image?
And kind of on that note, with the story you want to tell with an image, with a photo, like just say this one here with the athletes falling and with the trying to navigate the bend and trying to navigate the female athlete. With a photo, is it a case of you want the photo to show exactly what is happening and everyone has an 100% understanding of what the photo is trying to, show you, or the point is trying to get across? Or is it also important to have something in the photo? Like when I looked at this photo, I was thinking, why is there a female athlete in the male's race? Is it good to have that kind of, implement that kind of thing into a photo that has people thinking and kind of leaves it a mark in people's mind and for them to keep going back to a photo?
Yeah, a photo, in so many cases, the photograph's got so many layers, because you can look at it, once, and you can pick something out, and all of a sudden, then another time you look at it, something else will jump out at you. So in that photograph, or in so many other photographs that people take that are regarded as being, a good image, yeah, it's almost like an onion, that you take one layer away and it reveals something else, and you take another layer away and it reveals more. And in that photograph, there's lots going on. It's first of all, the first thing that hits you is the conditions, the corner. It's people trying to keep their own balance. There's the female athlete. There's the person jumping over. And when you look, obviously that was, it was acknowledged by the judges that they felt that was a good enough photograph to showcase emotion, or the perils or the difficulties of racing cross country pretty much within Europe. In some other countries it wouldn't be as bad as that, but on that particular day, the conditions were not good. That corner just lent itself lovely to a bit of a disaster for someone, and unfortunately it was an Irish athlete that happened to.
Definitely no. So no, that is definitely really interesting. So I suppose then it would really depend on the photo. There's photos that you see it, and each photo, as you mentioned, does have layers, but obviously there's, I suppose, a spectrum as such, where there's a photo where you see it and it has a deep meaning, but the deep meaning is very clear and it still has people thinking, but it's there and it's fronty and you can see it. But there's also the other end of the spectrum or the scale, where you can see what's happening, but if you can look at a picture from so many different angles, and there's so many different ways, so many different people can actually take different things from an image.
Well, yeah, it could be a photograph of wee Jimmy or something, and he's running along, and he's crying or something, whatever it is, and it just could be through pain, or it could be emotion. And I've taken photographs of that before, and the mothers come over and thank me because it was his first cross country race or whatever it was, and it's been documented. So it's been documented, because so many people take photographs on their phone, and then when they look at the photographs, they aren't not as good maybe as potentially as what can be taken with another
Definitely.
different camera. And so for one person, I would just look at that photograph. It doesn't really mean so much, but to the parent or to someone else, it means a lot. So there's just so many tiers. Like I took a photograph recently of a couple. There was a race in Ballyneal. It was a cross country race a couple of weeks ago. Helen O'Berry was there, and I'd taken a photograph of two younger members of my former club, North Down, and it was one young lad had his hand on the shoulder of another one, and it was just, they weren't walking in front of me, and I thought, this is a great photograph of camaraderie. The wee boy, the younger one, had just completed a race, but the older one, and he wasn't much older, he had put his hand on his shoulder, and it was just a lovely sign of solidarity and support, and to me it encapsulated what is so vibrant and so important about sport, about taking part, doing your best, and the benefits that those that you can reap from being active and leading an active lifestyle. But it was just a camaraderie between the two athletes, and it was just great to see one athlete showing a lot of support and fellowship to the other one.
Definitely. No, I have that picture up in front of me now, and the caption is "The beauty of sport," and I feel like that caption itself captures the meaning of that picture. Definitely. No, I 100% agree with you there. The one event specifically that I want to talk to you about is the European Cross Country Championships this year. Being there and being part of, the build up, being, part of the day itself, being there on the day, watching the race. I know personally it was an amazing day for Irish running and just Irish athletics in general. For you, in terms of you being there on the day just like anyone else, how was that for you? And also from a photography point of view, how good of a day was that for you, especially because how good of a day it was for Irish athletics and the emotion of the Irish people, whether it was the crowd, whether it was the under 23s winning gold, that sort of emotion. How was that day completely for you?
Yeah, it was great because I'd been down to Santry for the national championships, so it was really, really good to see the team being to see the team being made up in their performances. So it was really, really, that was very beneficial to see who was on form, what the team was going to be made up of. Abbottstown, so there's so much hype regarding it. There was so much on social media, and so much good work done by Athletics Ireland, Athletics Northern Ireland as well. They did a lot of good work because they had some athletes in the team. Ireland are fantastic for supporters. No matter where you go in the world, whether it's Bydgoszcz in Poland or some other countries for the Europeans of the world or whatever it is, there's always Irish flags, and Irish have a proud tradition of success. With Sonia O'Sullivan, Katrina McKiernan, Eamon Coughlin, Ray Flynn, John Tracy. There's so many names that have reached. Marcus O'Sullivan, Frank O'Mara. There's so many athletes that have reached the top of their careers. So Irish athletics has a very, very proud tradition, and Abbottstown was just wonderful. I'd been to the European Cross a number of years before in Santry, so it was again Irish. Irish organisation was brilliant, but Abbottstown, the conditions were great. Purpose-built course, a course that had been tried and tested, regarded as being a really, really good course. And then with the team, really top-notch team, people had trained specifically for it, and they were coming into form. And then it was just the cherry on the top of the cake, wasn't it, with the success. What was really, really good was for photographers of the channel right along the course, so a meter or 2 meter channel, which meant we could get right. So we didn't have to. It wasn't specific areas you could only stand in. You could make your way up throughout pretty much the boundary of the course, which was actually, I think, very, very novel. I'm not so sure if it's happened before, but certainly I would imagine other countries will take note of that, because it really aided the access for photographers, which then enabled better shots. You could get closer to the action, but just the atmosphere was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And it's gone down as people saying it's one of the best European cross countries. It's been going a long time, but just the vibrancy of the meet. The Irish fans are notorious for being loud. And very, very, supportive and getting behind every single athlete. Not only their own athletes, but certainly, every athlete, because supporters are very knowledgeable people, and they want to acknowledge and recognize, people are working hard and doing very well. But yeah, it was just great having the success. It was, in a couple of levels, you had the success, of Darren McElhenney and the great battle he had, and the colleagues behind them all pulling through, to get the medal. And then obviously you had at the other end of the spectrum, you had Fanula, who had just come off the back of a marathon so many weeks prior to that, and she was just doing her usual, unbelievable performance. Effectively rolling up the sleeves and just getting on with it and leading by example. What a great role model. What such longevity she's had, and again, coming from a very modest, very humble, both athletes, I've mentioned Dara there, and Fanula as well, just having just, did I say Vanilla Britain, but Vanilla McCormick, but just having that, ability just to get on with things, both very humble athletes, and two great role models. But yeah, Abbottstown was hard. It's gonna be hard to beat for sure. It's gonna be hard to
definitely.
beat, yeah.
You have a picture up on your Instagram here from the day with Keelan Kilrehill, and what I'm assuming is his other half, his girlfriend. It's from the day, and it's definitely full of emotion, but it's not a picture of them. It's not a picture of the race. It's not a picture of Keelan running. It's a picture of after the race, and obviously, as you mentioned, emotion for you specifically, and I feel like it would link to photography in general. But as I mentioned, it's not Keelan running; it's him and his girlfriend. From the day, what was in this picture that you looked at all the pictures of all the different athletes that you got from all the day that you decided, yeah, this one is the one I'll be posting?
Yeah, well, they often say, and a good picture paints 1,000 words, and when I looked at the photograph afterwards, thought, my goodness, there's a lot in that. It was a special day for Killian. He had a brilliant run, absolutely brilliant run. He was so strong, coming through the field, and I'd watched him race, a number of weeks prior in the national championships, and he was so pleased with his performance that day. He realised then he'd ticked the box for the team. Such a privilege to run in the European Championships on home soil, and to top it all off for him personally, he had an incredible run, and there was so much emotion there that day with him. Afterwards, there was many photographs taken with family and friends, and then I just managed to get this photograph, and I just thought, it's just a great photograph, because there's just so much emotion in it. They're just looking at each other, and I just thought because it was a special day for him. It really was special. He, I would imagine he surpassed. Yes, he would have had expectations to run, to place in it, to place whatever it was, whatever he wanted to do. But certainly, I think he surpassed all expectations. He just had a great run that day. He ran with so much heart and so much passion, and the photograph just sort of encapsulates for him. It was such a good day. It was just. And there's so much emotion in the picture.
100%. No, it is. I feel like it even captures the emotion. It doesn't just stem from the two people in it. It stems for Ireland specifically, the emotion for all the Irish people and all the Irish athletes that were there on the day.
Yeah. Everybody was pulling together. People are crying out for success for Ireland. And to get, and in some cases there's success. But some people don't get to see the success. When I reflect back about, had success before in European Championships, whatever, or maybe in Olympics had success with Sonia and all the rest of it. But people haven't had the ability to go and to access it. They've maybe watched it on TV. But to go to Abbottstown, and the crowd was great at the Nationals. At the Nationals, they gave the fervour for it. They gave people the impetus to here. Let's go and watch another meet. This is really good here, and for people to go to Abbottstown, to unite in terms of, well, let's see what this Irish team can do. And every race brought success for the Irish team, and for people just to witness that. When's the next time a European cross will be? It'll be in Ireland. Who knows? And to get that success. So it's just nice to document it, to witness it. And there's so many people that came away from athletics that day think, gosh, that was really, really good, and it put some, it gave great exposure to up and coming Irish athletes. Some people would have been unknowns to the major amount of people there, but for others now they've got a name for themselves, and people are looking out for them and going to support them, and it can only be good for the sport.
Definitely. No, it was a great day for Ireland, and it was great to have you there along with many other photographers to capture the day, so many people worldwide can kind of relive it. Definitely. But kind of moving on for the little final sector of the episode, I wanted to go through a few photos here on your Instagram, and kind of the main objective would be to kind of say, why this one? You know, in that sense, like why is this the one that you decided to post on your Instagram, and maybe just a short little bit of again why you posted it, and kind of what mean was within you to, again, why the reason that you posted this specific photo. So the one I'm going to kick off with is Mo Farah with his son Hussein, and also with his wife, after winning, I'm pretty sure it is in London in 2017 in the World Championships. So obviously it's a great picture, and it captures so much. It captures sport, it captures family. So specifically, why was it this picture that you thought was up there enough and good enough and willing enough to be posted up online?
Yeah, well, lots of people can have, as we mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of photographers sitting at the wedding trying to get the money shot, and you're trying to get the photograph across the line, which people need that, they need it for newspapers, need it for magazines. So they need those shots, but also I'm always trying to look out for a photograph that it's just a bit different. I got the one with Killian there, and I spotted Mo. I think he's waiting to be interviewed, and he had his water bottle, and of course then it's been shared, and I just thought it's just a great moment. It's a bit of downtime for him, and there was just something a bit different. I spotted it, what was going on. I could see what was going on, and then I snapped away. I just thought it's a nice family photograph. There's unity there, and they're just sharing the water bottle. And again, it's just that uniqueness. You're always trying to look for a shot that maybe someone else hasn't seen, or opportunity. And it's a unique photograph. It's like a photograph I got. I'm not too sure which photographs you're going to unveil here, so I don't want to spoil your thunder, but I got one of Jake Smith in his shoes.
You read my mind.
At the
yeah.
Pardon, did I?
No, go ahead. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so Jake's a great. He's a breath of fresh air to athletics. He's incredibly natural. I know his coach, who's James T, who's a former Great British international, a great coach, and so Jake is just a breath of fresh air in terms of just getting on. He's super talented, gets on with his hard work, but he likes just to do his own thing too. And I saw before the race that he had decorated his spikes, and I thought, hey, this makes for a good picture. And I think from memory, he had written 10K, written his PB down as well. And that's Jake. And in any sport, you need characters. You need people who are going to be a bit different from the norm. And that's why, of course, that Usain Bolt was just so successful. Because he was so different, and he did his own thing. He paved his own way. And Jake's another sort of person. That's why I got the photograph there. And he's, people nowadays are so into, new technology in shoes. They're looking for the new shoes that have been brought out. And there's so many, Instagram accounts that are focused entirely, pretty much on shoes and shoe development. And I just thought this here is something unique, and people will be interested in what sort of shoes that Jake is wearing here. And that was the reason behind the photograph of the shoes. For some person who doesn't know anything about shoes, whatever, they'll think what's that been taken for. But it was, I knew I when I saw the spikes, and I had to get the shot early, because obviously the course got it muddy later on, so it wasn't going to work later on. So I realized when I first saw him warming up, I thought I need to get a shot of these spikes here before they go dirty here, because it's not gonna be the same. So I had to get the shot early on. So that was the story behind that one. Sorry.
No, that was brilliant. It was gonna go on to, but that's deadly. Obviously it kind of shows that, as you mentioned, people are looking for the next best shoe, and kind of shoes are this precious thing that everyone's thinks that will take them to the next level in the running. But I feel like Jake maybe is kind of representing the fact that the shoe's great, but maybe what he has on the shoe is more personal to him, and is greater than the shoe itself.
Yeah, well, he's personalizing. He's personalized his shoes, but also he's it could be for motivation, as well. He's got things written down there. I think he'd written GB team or GB. He'd written, sometimes. If I just let me see, so can I get this shoe here on Instagram? Yeah, I've got it here now. Yeah, he's written Jake Smith. He's got a couple of stars. And then I think I might have got a photograph of something else that he's put XC for cross country in the front as well, and that's what I just personalized. it's Jake Smith. There's no two Jake Smiths. It's him, and he's his own person, and he's doing his own thing, and he's got big ambitions to run big times and to do very well for himself. And certainly wish him all the best, because he's a really nice nice fella.
Definitely no, it is one of them pictures that, like you mentioned, if someone who didn't have a clue about running or about shoes, running shoes in general, it would be something that they would be like, what's going on here? It's only a pair of shoes. Yeah. But and that's another thing that kind of makes it makes a photo so great, and a photo like that so great, is the fact that the fact that it leaves people thinking, it leaves people wondering, and as well, there's obviously people out there that understand what's going on in the picture, and also the deeper meaning that it actually has.
Well, it gives you an insight into the person himself. He's not. How many people would have the thinking or the ability to decorate their shoes, whereas he's thought, here, I'm going to decorate these spikes here. I'm going to do something, I'm going to personalize, and that almost reflects the personality. He's a confident fella. He lets his legs do the talking. And in this case, obviously, his spikes have done the talking for him. But he's a very talented guy. And he's a unique person, because he's been on the scene not a very long time, but he's made fantastic inroads in the last couple of years, and certainly he is a name to look for for the future, in terms of whether it's going to be half marathons and marathons onwards. He's maybe whatever 10,000 meters, but certainly he's definitely a name for the future, and he's just letting people know that he's on his way up there.
Definitely. There's one picture here that you got to go to for the 2 breaking 2 and the Ineos 159 challenge. Did you get to attend both of them?
Yes, I went to Vienna. Don't you mean the Vienna, the one with
yeah, that's it. That's the one I'm looking here at now. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a shoe? Is there a picture of a shoe, or is it which one are you looking at?
It's basically the picture with the 3 Ingebrigtsen brothers, and then the other pacers around them, and then Michele in the middle, which is obviously being at that, which is arguably one of the greatest moments in athletics history. Being there, just taking the picture out of the equation completely. Being there, what was that like compared to being a normal race? What was the atmosphere like? What was the whole experience like compared to a normal race?
Yeah, like it was incredible in terms of again, my wife went with me, and we left on a Friday evening, and then flew out, and on the Saturday morning, it was very early on. The race started very, very early, and we walked over to the course, and there wasn't a breath of wind. It was very, very calm. There was a bit of mist at the very, very start, and there was so much expectation, and so much excitement too, because what was Eliud capable of doing? And prior to that, I'd watched him breaking the world record in Berlin. He took in like about a minute and 15 or whatever seconds off Dennis Kometto's world record in Berlin. The guy's it's just incredible. And then to go to Vienna with so much expectation, it was all, it was so well choreographed in terms of what they were planning to do. And then obviously it was a stellar, he had stellar assistants in terms of obviously the Ingebrigtsens and a whole plethora of world-class athletes. So and then with the course was just so conducive in terms of, how many times we're going past you. So you're able to try and get, a lot of shots. But again, the speed, it's when you're actually there to witness events of that magnitude, the speed of those guys is just incredible. And it was just, again, so many thousands of people came out because obviously, Eliud is a global superstar. When I watched Eliud a number of years ago in Kenya, yes, he was a superstar on the circuit and within Kenya, but he wasn't this global superstar that he is now. He's really projected himself. He's really become media savvy, and it's great with the backing he has to project himself. He's done speeches in Oxford University and whatever, but now, it's just it was just incredible to watch it and to witness it and to actually witness him, achieving it. Because for a while you're thinking, gosh, it's tight. Like, it was very, very tight. If something had happened to him, if he had gone through a really bad patch, then it would have been missed. But come with the race, come with the man, so to speak. And he, it's a testament of such a great athlete. When you have to deliver, you can deliver, and delivering when it's really required. And Eliud Kipchoge delivered. It's just, and it just put him on a different level, different stratosphere. It was just incredible today. When I say the conditions were totally, perfect. And obviously that was all very well researched. They wanted the perfect climate, the perfect, the perfect running conditions, and the perfect surface, and it worked in their favor. And obviously with the help of all the pacemakers, which was very well choreographed as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm presuming that on the day, because it's a one in a lifetime thing, something that will probably never happen ever again, or the times that we get to watch athletics. So I'm presuming that you took countless amounts of pictures, whether they turned out being not so great or like this one here turned out being really good pictures. So would I be right in saying that you took countless amounts of pictures of the race that day?
Yeah, well, on that particular day, I was a punter with many other thousands. I didn't get the accreditation. The accreditation was kept very, very exclusive. They only wanted so many people getting, because they didn't want lots and lots of people at the finishing line, things like that. So that was kept at a minimum. So I don't know how many people got the accreditation, but it was kept, very, very small. So I was able just to stand with the masses. And even so, because they were doing so many laps, you're still able to get access. I had a couple of cameras with me, so it was fine. But I've got lots of good photographs of that. But again, it's just incredible how quickly they come past you. And then sometimes it was even difficult enough to get clean photographs of Eliud, because he was being guarded. He was being sort of shielded, in their pattern of pacemaking. He was kept within the group, and you've only got a very, very short window to try and get a few photographs. And yes, I have got some good ones. Yeah. And it's good because the pacemakers were rotating so often as well, because some did 5K. Some jumped in, some jumped out. So I didn't get a photograph of the actual finishing line, because where I was positioned, there's only the people in the infield were able to move up, so you couldn't really see. So I managed just to get a photograph of the clock. But after the aftermath of the finish, then people moved out, and I managed to get more photographs of them, coming away. So it was good,
Definitely.
Again, I throw back to my younger days, getting athlete, numbers and stuff. I managed to get Bernard Lagat's. Bernard Lagat gave me his number. Deadly. Off his head. So it was a bit of a throwback to when I was younger, collecting athletes' numbers and getting autographs and stuff like that. So it was quite nice he stood in front of me and took his he unpinned his number. So it's quite a nice momentum to have.
100. Now and that picture with all the pacemakers around Eliud Kipchoge, and kind of him just slightly peeking through, and obviously he's wearing the white thing, and all the other pacemakers wearing the black one. It's kind of like, and the look in his eyes and everything, how calm he looks, and maybe the pacemakers who aren't as used to running as fast as they currently are. It's it really is a great photo, and obviously fingers crossed for a lot more of these kind of photos produced by you. Once again, as I said, Keith's Instagram is down in the description below to check out a lot more of the photographs. Except obviously we went through a few today, but there's countless more from a good few different sports as well over on his page. So if you are interested, make sure to head over and give him a follow and check them out. And for me personally, I'll definitely be keeping up to date with your account and all the different amazing pictures you have the opportunity of, and as well the talent to be able to take and to claim. So no, it was an absolute privilege having you on the podcast today. As I mentioned, it was something completely different that I've never done before, and as I keep mentioning, it's definitely you had really some really good stories to tell from a different perspective of running and of the sport itself. So that was definitely really interesting. So I do appreciate you coming on.
Well, my next challenge is to get a couple of good photographs of yourself.
Well, I was gonna say that, but I thought I didn't want to be too vain.
No. I have to check my stock and see if I have any. You never
Yeah,
can
true.
tell. It's always you check stock and realize, oh, that's a photograph there. So you never
Daddy.
know.
So no, if you do, make sure and send them on. But over the next few years, hopefully, I end up getting a nice little slot on your SD card.
No problem. Yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely.
Deadly. So no, as I said, I really appreciate you coming on, and for anyone watching and listening at home, I appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.
Thanks very much for your time.
No
Thank
problem.
you.